The CEO of MGP resigned at the end of 2024 after the stock price plummeted and stockholders have filed a class action lawsuit. If you want to hear why and what it means for the bourbon market, then stick around. Before I get into this, I have to thank the patron supporters. Everyone's names that are on the screen right now are contributing at the top 3 levels. And if you want to find out more about how to support the channel, stick around until the end. Now, let's get some background information. MGP has had a rough past. So if you look in the history of MGP, it started off as a Seagram's plant, post-prohibition, went through some bankruptcy, went through a couple different changes of ownership, and then it was purchased by MGP, MGP Ingredients, and their main way of making money in the beginning was to sell whiskey to non-distiller producers. So the bourbon boom, where everybody's going out and trying to find liquid that's of age, that tastes good, caused their stock price to skyrocket. But their efforts to grow their own brand were relatively unsuccessful. So as they're using their whiskey to make money, they're selling these, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old barrels of bourbon mostly, sometimes rye, to brands that we all knew of, like Smooth Ambler and Blonde Brothers and so on and so forth. And some of these brands started to sell for very large sums of money. And so when MGP bought the assets out of the bankruptcy holdings, they only paid $26 million for the plant and all of its inventory. And then within a few years, they're selling the inventory that they had to these other brands, and this other brand that doesn't even make the whiskey sells for $160 million. And so MGP's like, you know what we need to do? We need to start our own brand. So for their bourbon, they started the Remus brand, and for their rye, they started the Rossville Union brand, but they weren't really getting much market penetration. The non-distiller producers that were selling their whiskey were actually getting more market share than they were with Remus. And so they came up with this bright idea. In 2021, they purchased Luxco. And Luxco is a spirits conglomerate that owns Ezra Brooks and Blood Oath and David Nichols and Rebel Yell and some other spirits brands. And when you started to read the press releases, MGP said that they bought them or merged with them mostly to gain access to their distribution network. And so their logic was, we're going to buy this company and then we'll be able to distribute our Remus and Rossville Union brands through the wholesale relationships that come along with the purchase. But their own brands didn't really do all that well. They still continue to struggle to capture market share. So in 2023, they got another good idea and they said, hey, what about the latest and greatest brand that's really been crushing it and taking tons of market share with our whiskey, which was Penelope? Why don't we just go buy them? And so between the distribution network that we got from Luxco and the brand recognition and equity of Penelope, we should be able to crush it with that. And so they agreed to pay a whopping $215.8 million for Penelope. And Penelope was started in 2018, not long after they started to grow their own bourbon brands. So they paid $105 million in cash up front, and then there was $110.8 million in earn out potential, which is going to come into play in a little bit. So there was a CEO that was leading all of this growth and the mergers, and at some point he stepped down and he was replaced by David Bratcher, who had been the president of Luxco before the merger. And so on January 1st, 2024, David Bratcher took the CEO position. And if you look at the history of the stock price, back in 2020, it hit a low of about $24 per share. And the stock got as high as $123 per share. So you're talking about 5x growth by August of 2023. And then the stock started to decline to about $80 in October of 2024. And that month, they released guidance that stated soft demand and high inventories were in fact undermining its sales, which I am an accountant. I know I talk a lot about real estate and whiskey, but I actually have accounting and finance degrees. I literally used to read quarterly reports from publicly traded companies for fun. Yeah, that's right. That's how gangster I am. And when you read this, it doesn't make any sense. Inventory should not affect sales, but whatever. Whenever they released that information, though, the stock price went from about $80 a share to $45 a share, and that's a pretty solid drop overnight. And now it's down around $34 per share. So obviously everybody's freaking out because it's a publicly traded company, and David Bratcher, his name is on the chopping block. And so they actually brought in the former owner of Luxco to take over as chairman of the board. And then they asked David Bratcher to retire, which he did. And he stepped down as of December the 31st, 2024. And currently the CFO is filling in for the CEO while the board of directors looks for a new CEO. So that's kind of what's happening.
What are you doing?
Oh, I'm testing my new whiskey glass that I had designed.
Why?
Well, there's a company out there that's a real Karen, and she threatened to sue us.
Really? You don't say.
Yeah, so we had been producing some traditional tulip-shaped whiskey glasses.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
We never used the name.
Right, of course.
But they claimed to own the shape of the glass. Mm-hmm. And since I'm just a little guy, I couldn't fight.
Right.
But do you know what that motivated us to do, Wes?
What?
To go out and design a glass that was actually made for high-proof American spirits. So the company that had the problem with us, their glass was originally designed for low-proof Scotch whiskey.
Oh, okay.
80, 86 proof, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And you know what I had noticed? Every time I would nose a really high-proof, high-quality spirit in the United States out of this glass, all I got was ethanol burn.
Yeah, a little burn there. I felt that.
And so we went out and we designed this glass that's actually designed for those higher-proof spirits. And I'm so confident in this glass that if anybody were to go to our website and buy one, I'm offering a money-back guarantee.
Wow.
If you get that glass to your house and you find yourself one of these traditional tulip-shaped glasses and you nose a high-proof spirit side by side and you can't tell the difference, I will gladly give you your money back.
So what you're saying is they can really stick it to the Karen and support the little guy by going to bourbonrealtalk.com and ordering one of these with absolutely no risk. They could get their money back if they don't prefer it nosing it to the other?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if you love small business and you like sticking it to Karens, that's the way to go.
Stick it to Karen. bourbonrealtalk.com.
Cheers. What happened that caused all of this instability? Well, growing a brand is a lot bigger than just making really great whiskey. And I've learned that trying to grow the Prideful Goat. And by the time they started growing their own brands, they were low on the old inventory of whiskey, the high age inventory of whiskey that made all of those other brands so successful and popular and valuable. And so that's one of the things that I think Wall Street has a hard time evaluating a company like MGP, because its future prospects are tied not only to the whiskey market in general, but they are also tied to what their agent inventory looks like. And so if you grow a business that has huge revenue because you had all of this 12, 13, 14-year-old inventory and you sell all of that off to other brands, you're going to look great on paper today, but you're not going to be able to maintain that same revenue stream. To grow a brand, you have to lose money, basically. It's what they call your AMP budget, your advertising, marketing, and promotion budget. And if you're not losing money, at the very least, you're reinvesting everything. And so all of the brands that I've seen that came into the market, that took a bunch of market share and grew really quickly, either had an investor at the head that understood the game, that had seemingly unlimited resources. For instance, everybody who wants to start a spirits brand loves to talk about the vodka company Deep Eddies. And they go, oh, well, Deep Eddies, in 5 years, they sold for $350 million. Yes, but Deep Eddies was started by a billionaire, and he literally had the goal, from what I'm told from insiders that participated in the sale, his goal was to lose $100 million in the first 5 years. And the way that he did it is every time he sold $1 worth of alcohol, he spent $2 on advertising, marketing, and promotion, because he knew that once he got the sales up to a certain level, there were investment conglomerates that would come in and buy the brand out from underneath him, and he would make a large rate of return, which is what he did. And so publicly traded companies can't do that. So it's almost as if MGP was doomed from the beginning, because the way that you grow a brand that has a lot of equity is by either not making money, losing money, or taking every single penny that you make and reinvesting it into the company. And they're not allowed to do that because they get judged every quarter by their stockholders. And if they don't perform according to the stock market's expectations, then the entire board will fire everybody that works at the company. And they're not allowed to do the kinds of things that grow businesses. The other thing is success is going to come to them from laying down whiskey and letting it get old. And MGP had pressure to keep up their sales from the past. And so they were using a large amount of their capacity to sell new make and young whiskey to other non-distiller producers just to keep their revenue up, which was going to screw up their sustainability of their business model in the future if they were ever able to grow the brand. And in my opinion, their investment in Luxco and Penelope were not going to fix that problem. Right? Because they didn't have the high-age stock that built, for instance, Smooth Ambler. They didn't have the high-age stock that built Whistle Pig and other companies that, we now know to be great big brands. And so even if you had Penelope, you're still going to have some higher age stock. And just because you have a contract with the distributor doesn't mean that their salespeople are going to go push it in the market. And that's something that I've had to learn. I've had to fire wholesalers before because they sign up and you pay them an exorbitant amount of money in the form of allowing them to mark your product up. You could have kept that money, but you had to sell it to them for cheaper so that they would be able to bump the price up and make a nice healthy profit. And guess what they do with it? If you sell the product, they'll put that profit right in their pocket, but they're not going to actually use that money to pay salespeople to go out and represent your brand. And I think that them purchasing Luxco for distribution agreements just really didn't make a lot of sense. And I think that, picking up Penelope wasn't going to fix their issue, that they didn't have the high age inventory that everybody's looking for. So the timing of their merger and acquisition were not great. And now that we know that the market is shifting and what's going on with the market, it seems like it was very ill-fated and probably is the cause of why David Bratcher had to step down, and it's going to cause some turmoil for MGP in the immediate future. So in conclusion, I think there's going to be some short-term pain for the employees, especially the C-level executives. They're going to be under a lot of pressure for a lot of time. I think that there's going to be a long-term gain for bourbon lovers because what's happening is they now have inventory that there's not demand for in the market. They have inventory that they don't have demand for in their own brands currently because their brands haven't grown large enough. And that means there's going to be some high-aged MGP whiskey available for the market in the future. Because even if the company shut down, which it's likely not going to, but even if it did, that whiskey's not going anywhere. It will continue to age and it'll eventually be bottled and sold to us. And you're going to end up with some higher age whiskeys at some lower prices. And that's not going to be terrible for the consumer. So it's unlikely, though, that the owners of Penelope, that $110.8 million that they got to earn out based on performance, I don't think that they're going to end up getting all that money. And so that's a little bit sad because those individuals, they put in a lot of work and roughly half of what they thought they were going to get is now in question because of the market and the turmoil of the company that purchased them. But if you think about it, had they not sold, they're probably better off being part of this large conglomerate with $105 million in cash in their pocket than they would have been trying to face this market on their own and not having cashed out any of their equity. So I think Penelope probably still made a pretty good decision to sell to them when they did. So if this is your first time tuning in, one of the things you need to know about us is we love to give away whiskey on this channel. And I thought maybe I could give away some of my Remus special bottles. So I'm going to do 3 1-ounce sample packs, and you're going to get Remus Repeal Reserve 2, Remus Repeal Reserve 3, Remus Repeal Reserve 6, and my Remus Gatsby. And all you have to do to enter to win is like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell to be notified of future content pieces, which you want to do because we give away whiskey on every episode. And if you want free whiskey, you're going to want to check out every episode that we release. And last and most importantly, you have to go down below the video in the description, click the link, fill out the free giveaway web form. That's going to give us your basic contact information. We will run a randomizer, pick a winner, post it publicly for accountability, reach out to you, get your address, and ship you your samples for free. And if you like this content, you want to support the channel, there's 3 different ways. We have a Patreon. We have Patreon levels for all budgets, and we've got a lot of member benefits. The second way would be to purchase Bourbon Real Talk merch from bourbonrealtalk.com. We got a lot of merchandise that solves a lot of whiskey problems. And the third way, the way I make my living, is as a residential real estate agent in the Dallas and Houston metro areas. And if you're looking for real estate services in either of those markets, I'd love to interview for the job. I do give away epic allocated bottles as closing gifts. And there are links in the video description for all 3 ways that you can support this channel. And if you want to know why we go through all of this effort, yes, whiskey is delicious and we love to drink it, but whiskey also has this magical ability to bring people together. And we actually created this channel because we wanted to use the connective power of whiskey to create community and connection. I lost a loved one to suicide. He was missing some of those connections in his life. And I thought maybe if I could get you connected to whiskey, the whiskey would do the rest of the job and get you connected to others. And so we started this channel. We also ended up starting our own forums. A lot of forums out there have negativity and hate in them. So we have a troll-free environment that you can go join on Facebook called Bourbon Real Talk Community. Lots of great things going on in there, including starting our own 501c3 suicide prevention and intervention nonprofit called livestayproject.org. So, might want to check that out. And we always try to end every episode with a positive message, because after seeing all those trolls and all that hate online, we realize if they can hate online, we can love online. And we end every episode the same way, and that's this. If you woke up this morning and you're unsure whether or not anyone loved you, just know that I love you. And I'll see you next time on Bourbon Real Talk. A whiskey troll is a person who seeks negative attention and uses contrarian attitudes to derail civil discussion in online forums. They communicate in ways they never would face to face because they're keyboard warriors. Their only goal is to make other people feel inferior.
Hey guys, I'm new here. I just got my first Blanton's.
And trust me, you probably paid way too much.
I don't care much about the Blantons, but nice.
There's no way that she didn't buy that at secondary. Idiot.
Oh, I know how you got that bottle.
So, are you sick and tired of the whiskey trolls running your fun online? Well, that's why we started Bourbon Real Talk Community. Congratulations. Let me know what you think when you open it up.
Hey, welcome to the group. Let me send you over a sample of Blanton's Gold and straight from the barrel. See how you like those.
I remember back to my first bottle of Blanton's. It was the birthday to my son, and we enjoy it every year on his birthday. Congrats.
So if you're looking to connect with some people online who aren't, head over to facebook.com and join Bourbon Real Talk Community today.